and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we're joined by political commentator Kay Smythe Hill, as well as the Federalist Brianna Lyman. Ladies, love to have you on the show. I think what absolutely blew up the media, I mean, a lot of things really trigger these people, Kay, but one of my favorite recently was there was a photo of my husband, Eric Trump, with a Trump 2028 hat. And when he posted that online, people went absolutely bananas. The amount of media inquiries he got, people texting me saying, is Eric running for president? People saying, look, Donald Trump doesn't care about the Constitution. He's seeking a third term. We knew it all along. We told you guys that. And then President Trump, over the weekend, did an interview with Kristen Welker. And here's what he said. He said, I'm not looking to do it. Oh, newsflash for all these lunatics out there. I'm looking to have 4 spectacular years and then turn it over. He says 4 years is plenty of time to do something spectacular. Kay, these people are so easy to trigger these days. The folks in the mainstream media, the legacy media, I absolutely loved how he kind of toyed with them, how my husband, who didn't even tell me he was putting this hat out on online, did it. But can everybody, Kay, you think, calm down now that Donald Trump is saying, yes, I'm only going to serve out the next 4 years, my 4-year term here, and then I'm done?
Oh, absolutely. And also, like, huge disservice credit to these, like, so-called journalists that jumped on the sort of Trump 2028 bandwagon, presuming that it was your father-in-law. Didn't specify which Trump it was.
You're
just
right.
saying. No, I think this is, like, just such standard behavior from the left. I think everyone just needs to take a chill pill. I don't know. Is that too much of like a 90s saying? Can we bring that back?
Right.
Take a chill
bring
pill.
It back. I'm here for that. Yeah.
No, they absolutely all need to take a chill pill. Like, I completely agree. There's a lot that can be done in 4 years. We saw it the last 4 years, and especially now that we have the House, we have the Senate. I think it's going to be magical, just like the first 100 days.
Oh, we got an alarm going off? What do we have?
That's me.
Was that you, Brianna? All right, well, good.
You're
we'll
so
bring
popular.
You right in. Yeah, I mean, everyone's trying to talk to you. Yeah, we have a great opportunity right now. And I think with a competent president, with someone who for the past 4 years has actually been planning his return and looking at the disaster that was created during the last administration, I think you can get a lot done. And I think President Trump already, I mean, my gosh, now we're past the first 100 days, which everybody kind of gets obsessed over. There's been so much that's happened. And I think it's funny because instead of, talking about some of the huge things that have been progress for this country that have taken Americans in a better direction, this is the kind of crap the media gets obsessed over. And I think my favorite, too, is in this Kristen Welker interview. The president goes, a lot of people want me to do it. A lot of them want me to do it. And you can tell she's just like, oh, my God. Like, she's in a full panic that he's going to say, I'm going to do it. So good.
Yeah, it's funny because every time I see President Trump, even J.D. Vance and other Republicans go on with Kristen Welker, I'm always like, why are we giving propagandists airtime?
Yeah.
And then every time that they actually go on, though, they make them look like the propagandists and fools that they are. So it's totally fine that they do it, but there are some other Republicans who can't handle it. And you just mentioned the first 100 days, and I've been writing pieces at the Federalist about this, but I said the biggest accomplishment, and it was the only accomplishment I think that really mattered, is that your father-in-law closed the border. And people say, well, what about everything else? He's done a lot of stuff, and I could have listed them all right now. But the border being closed is his biggest accomplishment, because if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And if you don't have a country, what's the point of anything, right? So I think that there needs to be a lot of focus from the media on what your father-in-law did in 100 days and compare that to what Joe Biden did in 4 years. 10 million illegals coming across this country. Donald Trump gets it down. How many, I think I heard Tom Homan say, like less than a dozen people have actually been let into the interior of the United States. That's how effective the Trump administration has been thus far. And we still have, almost a full 4 years left to go.
Yeah, it is really amazing. It actually shows what someone who wants to do the job can do. I mean, Joe Biden was just, asleep at the wheel, I guess, is a very kind way to say it. I don't know that this guy knew anything about what was going on at all. But this is what happens when you have competent leadership, when you have people who want to actually do a job. And I mean, like, I hate to stereotype parties, but it feels like Republicans, you know, writ large, are generally people who want to go out and work for a living, who want to get things done. And a lot of Democrats, I find, are the people who just kind of want to sit back and like let life happen to them. And I hate to just, again, stereotype that way, but this could not be you couldn't have a better contrast between the last 4 years and now the first 100 days of this, you know, next 4 years that we're under. Two different presidents, two different, you know, parties, and it really kind of feels indicative, you know, Kay, of what we typically see from so many people who subscribe to the different, you know, ways of viewing the country and our, you know, political process.
Well, I think like the two different parties have completely redefined themselves over the last, what's it been, like over 10 years, I think at this point, give or take. I can't exactly remember the date that your father-in-law announced that he was running.
We're coming up on 10 years. June 15th of 2015 will be, that was 10 years ago that Donald Trump came down the golden escalator. Isn't that wild?
Isn't it crazy? I feel old. I feel insanely old realizing that now.
Me too.
It's kind of scary, but no, we've seen like a complete rebrand, right? Like we've had the Democrats go from the 90s Clintonite sort of very slutty, I'm going to get away with whatever I want and do whatever I want, because really I'm not actually a Democrat. I'm just here to enrich myself and take over the world. And so we had that sort of normalized process of thinking that I think was definitely present during the Bush administration. Again, I don't know if that's because of him or the people that he surrounded himself with. A lot of similar people, kind of, you know, your Bush, Cheney, Clintonite, Obama, like that whole cabal, if you will. And then we've seen this like massive switch that is not just, I guess, it hasn't just translated from a political perspective, but it's really a socio-cultural perspective. And it's kind of the coolest thing I've ever seen, especially as like a sociologist by trade. When I came to the United States, I definitely saw the sort of Democrats for what they were. I think the rest of the world kind of saw them to a certain extent for what they were, you know, really just out to enrich themselves. But there was no one here to sort of step in and speak for the people and say, this isn't okay. We don't want you to run things this way. We don't want to be part of this globalist oligarchy. We don't want to surrender all of our rights and give up everything that it means to be American. So we need someone to step up, listen to us, and enact that. And that was Trump. And that's the spiel that I like to give all of my family back in the UK when they're there, sort of like, oh, I don't really understand. Surely there's got to be someone on the left who's good these days. And I'm like, no, they're all lizards. And they're all out to steal your money. Get out your tinfoil hats, fam.
What does your family in the UK think of everything here in the US?
The funniest thing, and this, I feel so mean saying this, like almost like betraying their trust a little bit. All of them really don't understand America. They're told not to like it, so they say that they don't. Every single one of them admits they would rather be America, like have Britain be America than be Britain right now. But they're too scared to say that out loud. Like we were talking right before we started recording about the fact that like people get arrested in the UK for sending private jokes in WhatsApp group messages.
It's wild.
Like, you know, it's not a country anymore. Like Brianna said, like it doesn't have borders. It's not a country. It doesn't really exist.
There's a real 1984 style thought police type situation going on in the UK right now. Like it really is unbelievable. I think a lot of people in the U.S. are unaware of just how bad it is over there. But you know, Kay, you have family over there, so you would know it's kind of terrifying. And so I don't blame them, but maybe they'll never fully admit it to anybody. You know, Brianna, whenever you have things that seem to be going the right way for the country, lo and behold, you always have some lunatic who's going to file an article or 7 of impeachment against President Trump. That's what's going on. You have Michigan Rep. Sri Thanadar, I think that's how you say his name. He filed 7 articles of impeachment. They include accusations of obstruction of justice, abuse of executive power, taking away Congress's power of the purse. I assume that's Doge, making sure that our money isn't being wastefully spent. Abuse of trade powers and international aggression. Oh, you mean trying to level the playing field for America? Got it. Violation of First Amendment rights, whatever that's about. Creation of an unlawful office, and probably Doge. Bribery and corruption. Tell me about that because I would love to know. And political overreach. He claims that the president is attempting to gain, quote, unchecked power. Brianna, the most predictable thing in the entire world was this happening. Of course, whenever Donald Trump is just dominating these Democrats.
You know, I saw this story, and my actual overarching view of this is here we have an Indian-born man who can barely speak clear English trying to impeach the American president elected by Americans. And all it reminded me of is this is one of the greatest failures of our founding generation, and there weren't many, but it's allowing natural-born citizens into federal government. And this is something that was hotly debated by the founders. You had James Madison, who naively said, look, there are some dangers about allowing foreign-born people who become naturalized into the federal government, but Americans will always choose their fellow countrymen to represent them instead of their foreigners. And I guess hindsight is, 250 years later that you see that's not the case. You have to understand, here you have a foreigner trying to impeach Donald Trump because Donald Trump wants to enforce our immigration laws. Donald Trump wants to make sure it's America first and not globalism first. And that is the exact danger of allowing non-native born people in the federal government, because their allegiance will never 100% fully be to America. It will always have the interests of other countries, maybe your native country, maybe the globalist regime, and that is going to destroy this republic.
What's very interesting, this guy, I didn't know a lot about him, this congressman, and so I looked him up. And can I tell you what I'm actually very impressed with this gentleman about? He's 70 years old. Do yourself a favor, everybody. Go look this guy up. His name is spelled S-H-R-I, Shri Thanedar, T-H-A-N-E-D-A-R. He's a Michigan congressman. Again, if you want to, I mean, I don't know what's going on with the hair. Could or could not be his. But either way, his face, he's either had some great work done or he's the youngest looking 70-year-old I've ever seen. I'm blown away. That's the only thing positive I'm going to say about this gentleman. And
Water.
Good luck to him. That's what I'll say. But he's got a face for something. It's probably not for politics anymore.
Or TV.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one who noticed how young he looked.
I thought he was in his 40s. I was like, wow, this guy looks amazing.
You guys are so kind. I swear I took one look at him and I was just like, look at that hair, look at that eyebrows. That's not a man that anyone should trust with anything.
Kay, just to be clear, I'm not saying I'm complimenting the hair. What I'm saying is I'm very impressed with his overall
no wrinkles,
youthful. I don't know what he's doing. I would like to know, what supplements this guy's on. Other than that, I want nothing to do with him. But I'm very curious what's going on, because I had to do a couple double takes. I was like, hold on, it says 70 years old here. Anyway, so that's one thing he's got going for him. Probably not a lot else, because can I just say, Kay, this whole thing is it's all such a big stunt and a charade. To me, that is all the Democrats have become. Is just a bunch of stunts. You have them sitting out on, the steps of the Capitol. You have, Cory Booker for 24 hours ranting and raving on the Senate floor. You had Chuck Schumer doing something like that the other day. They're all just about stunts. They're not about doing anything that actually impacts people. And I'll tell you what, this impeachment nonsense backfired on them, because, the more they have gone after this one man, Donald J. Trump, the more people look to him and they say, you know what, I actually like Donald Trump. You know what, I'm actually going to vote for him. You know what, he's actually going to get the popular vote for the first time a Republican has in 20 years. That's what this kind of crap is going to do to the Democrats. So I don't know what kind of game they're playing. It's interesting to me that kind of a nobody congressman that no one's ever heard of is the one that introduced these articles of impeachment.
Oh, get ready for a whole bunch of that. They have no leader. They're going to start throwing out all of these. There's this rumor. When I used to live back in LA, I heard this rumor that the Democrats actually recruit most of their sort of celebrities. I don't want to call them politicians because they're not. They're just political celebrities, right? Yeah. Sort of your AOCs, that other one who, I can't remember her name, but she was older, did something to do with the environment, I guess, but had probably never, the furthest she'd been off road was the Whole Foods parking lot. I heard this rumor that the Democrats actually recruit all of their leaders from one of two acting schools, either in Los Angeles or in New York. And that's why none of these people are intelligent, right? Because they're actors who are paid to read lines that someone else wrote for them, to move their bodies in a way that someone else tells them to, and to pose for photos and just essentially stand there and look pretty, right? And they can't even do that, as we just kind of learned from this last guy. He looks young, but, you know, the hair, come on, someone hasn't told him. He needs more people around him he can trust. But I think that this is normal, right? Like, we're going to see so many people get thrown at us. It's not going to be Gavin Newsom because he destroyed California and no one wants him. He's never going to win against anyone in 2028. I really don't know who they're going to start pulling out the woodwork, but we're going to see a lot of freaky looking people saying a lot and doing a lot of dumb stuff over the next few years until they find one who they can maybe manipulate well enough to maybe be the face of their party, which, I mean, they don't have any voters, so like, why bother at this point?
They're in real dire straits right now as a party, and I think that's such an interesting take. I've not heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me, because look, some of these people, you look at them, and remember the guy, I can't even remember which congressman it was, who said that, like, if you put too many people on the side of, like, Guam or something, it was going to flip over. Do you remember this? Do you guys remember? That was like 10 years ago or something. I know somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. I wish I would have had the time to look it up. But anyway, point being, these people you really have to question what kind of intellect we're dealing with here. But I think it's interesting, and I think what's going to happen is, you are right about something, Kay. I think the bigger names in the Democrat Party are kind of trying to save face at this point. They know their party is destroyed. I believe that 2024 was the end of the Democrat Party as we've always known it. That party's dead. And I don't know what this new one is they're formulating, but they clearly don't have a leader. They clearly don't have a real message for the American people, or any true platform of any variety, which is why people are really just kind of staying away from them. But, you know, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, the Gavin Newsoms of the world, these big name celebrities, even look at, I'm sorry, Gretchen Whitmer, who's been a little friendly with President Trump lately. I like a little bipartisanship too. These people, I think, are going to try to distance themselves from what the party is doing, and this nonsense, this kind of crazy impeachment garbage, because they realize that their legacy is going to be tied to the ship actually sinking. And instead, I think some of them are like, oh, we'll just let these crazy people do it, and then we'll kind of stay in the background. We'll let Sri Thanadar file the 7 articles of impeachment. I don't know, Brianna. I really do think that this party is, I mean, they're in a world of hurt right now. And I don't know who's gonna come to the top for them, who's gonna rise up in the ranks and be their leader. Right now, it's like a Jasmine Crockett, and that is really wild. We live in a time where speaking the truth often comes with a cost, but silence has a cost too, and it's one we can't afford. Live Not by Lies is a powerful new docuseries that shines a light on how soft totalitarianism is gaining ground in America. Based on the best-selling book by Rod Drehar, the series shares real stories from men and women who lived under brutal communist regimes. They know what it's like to lose freedom, and they see it happening in the warning signs here. Through gripping personal accounts and powerful interviews, the series shows how surveillance, censorship, and ideological conformity are not things of the past. They're happening now, often disguised as progress or protection. You can stream Live Not by Lies today by joining Angel Guild. Visit angel.com/Lara to join. That's angel.com/LARA. Watch it, share it, and stand firm for faith, for family, and for freedom. America's national debt has soared past $36 trillion, but smart investors are turning to gold. During President Trump's first presidency, gold surged over 52%. This year, gold has already broken records, soaring past $2,900 an ounce, and analysts predict it could even hit $3,300 soon. Now's the time to find out more about investing in gold. Call 855-704-GOLD or visit goldgatecapital.com. You can buy gold with cash or easily add gold and silver to your IRA or 401k. And for a limited time, you could get up to $15,000 in free silver with qualified purchases. Goldgate Capital has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of 5-star reviews. Don't wait, claim your free gold information guide today. Call 855-704-GOLD or visit goldgatecapital.com now.
Yeah, there's been a lot of polls that have come out this past week, and my general rule of thumb is never trust a poll, especially because right now they're telling us that Donald Trump is historically unpopular, and yet still people choose him over Kamala. But the one thing I do trust from the polls is that voters apparently still say that even if they don't like Donald Trump, they still trust Republicans to do a better job on all of the issues than they do Democrats. And we knew that was true in November, and I still believe that's true now. And the reason is, and you guys have kind of just touched on it, Democrats have hinged their entire electoral bets on identity politics. Yeah. They had no coherent message to run on, instead just simply saying, I'm not Donald Trump, and remember how much we hated him? Well, we hate him even more. Chris Murphy from Connecticut is a phenomenal example of this. He's one of the most ignorant people serving in the Senate, and he tweets almost daily, if not hourly, about how bad Donald Trump is, but I've never seen a solution come from Chris Murphy. And that is the problem with the Democratic Party writ large, and especially when you have to go back and get some of your key voting groups back, like Latino voters, Black voters, and male voters. None of their policies are targeted to bring them back. And when we talk about males, look, the men are leaving the Democratic Party in swaths, primarily because all of the policies coming out of the Democratic Party have been made to emasculate men. Democrats have focused on this hyper-obnoxious girl boss regime and have crafted policy around promoting that ideology, and it left men feeling homeless in a political party. And Donald Trump and J.D. Vance come on the stage, and they're doing podcasts with real average dudes. They're sitting down and saying, you know what, no, we're going to make things more affordable. It's okay to be a man and be happy of it. You don't have to put on makeup and skirts and want to be into health, like all that stuff. You can just be your average white guy. And that's something Tim Walz and no one in the Democratic Party seems to understand. So until they finally try to understand it, they're going to keep losing.
I'm so glad you brought up Tim Walz. I'm so glad you brought up identity politics. By the way, here's the support among Black voters for President Trump. 2016, 8%, 2020, 13%, 2024, 20%. Those numbers terrify every single Democrat out there. Let's look at the swing states for a second. Donald Trump gained 1% more Black voters in the state of Georgia in this election than he did in the previous. 2% more in Michigan and 5% more in North Carolina. Those numbers are really bad and very detrimental for the Democrats. But don't worry, because they had a plan. Kay, whenever Kamala Harris became the nominee, they said, we've got the perfect guy to complement her, because it had to be a man. Tim Walz. The best thing that Tim Walz has done is he's gone out there and he's been talking a lot, and he sounds so crazy. He says that Kamala picked him so that white guys could have permission to vote for a Black woman. This is not even a joke. And this is what he says. He says, quote, I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck. I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do for this and vote for this. The embarrassment that this man brought upon himself. Remember the pheasant hunt? Remember that nonsense during the campaign? Mm-hmm. And everyone was like, this is really dumb. He also did some stunt playing a video game with AOC. If this is the great hope for the Democrats, this is how they're going to normalize themselves and get young white men to vote for them. I hate to be the one to break it to them. Didn't pan out.
Did not pan out. Was probably one of the funniest things they could have done. Just so off base. I remember the day that Tim Walz was announced as the running mate, and it was just we were all just kind of I think we were all still at the caller, the daily caller. We were just kind of
shocked.
We're all just sitting around who is this Humpty Dumpty, frilly-looking, Ugg boot, probably wearing, sad little gay white man who's about as cool as literally nothing? It was so beautiful. It was exactly, like you said, just the exact right thing that they could have done, because it just proved to the entirety of America, oh, these people aren't listening to us. And then, like Brianna said, when you've got Donald Trump going and hanging out with Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan, and we are the Kill Tony generation. obviously everyone's going to go for the guy who's hanging out with those guys, not the guy who's not even really a real man. Like Tim Walz, he's really just a really sad, embarrassing little man. And I think it's honestly, like, it's just kind of really nice to know that we're never going to have to listen to guys like that ever again. Like, I'm really excited about that. Like, I just realized that right now, that we're literally never going to have to listen to them ever again because, like, yeah, because men are not going to go vote for that party anymore. That's just made my day. I'm so happy.
But it was all so phony, Brianna. That's what I found like the most shocking. First of all, I remember, Kay, talk about just thinking of something right now. As you were describing that moment that we were all kind of like waiting around to see who Kamala is going to pick. And obviously, don't forget, I'm the RNC co-chair at this time. We had all this like chaos. It was just like a full-blown, chaos fest. Joe Biden is no longer in. Then it's Kamala. Then who's she going to choose? Of course, you're like, well, what's going on? And obviously Josh Shapiro was the person who most of us thought was going to be her running mate. It made so much sense. State of Pennsylvania, this guy is actually, I mean, if you listen to him side by side with Obama, they sound very similar in their oration, like can deliver a speech, has a way about him. The second they announced Tim Walz, I think we were all like, oh my God, they just ended any chance at all they possibly had to win this thing. And then they set him up, like I said, with these dumb stunts and these moments that were so phony and ridiculous, Brianna. I don't know that they're ever going to convince people to vote for them again if they don't get real. If there's no authenticity there, I think people are just going to be like, we're done. I just talked about the black voting numbers. Latino voters, by the way, voted for President Trump at a rate of 43% in this past election. That is up 8% from 2020. That shift was huge. So you have all of these big blocks, these demographics of people who traditionally the Democrats don't even have to try for. They just get them. They just are like, yeah, the young vote, got it. Black voters, got them. Latino voters, got them. They're losing their grip with all of those groups. And it's because I think a lot of it is people are like, these people are weird and phony. Talk about weird. That's what they try to call us. They got a real problem.
Yeah, and they're also out of touch. So on the Tim Walz thing, I just remembered, it was a few weeks ago, he said that it's old white men who are constantly disappointing the country, and yet we're supposed to believe that he was supposed to go out and win with the structure, the white vote. Yeah. That just goes to show you how inauthentic they were. Because while he's trying to win over the white male vote, putting on the camo hat and holding the gun like backwards or whatever, he was really thinking, man, these people disappoint me on a daily basis. You mentioned the Latino vote, and I think this one is a very interesting voting block. Because what the left has done is they've abandoned any semblance of faith in any of their politics. Democrats 50 years ago, they still had some kind of faith within their politics. They weren't that far off the deep end. The Latino community is very intertwined in their faith writ large.
Yes.
And they see the assaults, for instance, this gender bender ideology, they see abortion. They don't see it the way Democrats do. They see it more the way conservatives do, right? Like, children should be hands off. Abortion, really unnecessary unless it's, medical emergency, something like that, right? There's like those like niche different areas for abortion. But at the end of the day, the left has gone so far left on those key family issues that it doesn't resonate with Latinos and their faith. And so Democrats not only have the issue of winning back the entire, country, so to speak, with their policies, but the specific groups they have to win back means they have to shift more to the middle. And the people leading the charge in the Democratic Party right now, AOC, Sanders, Walz, are not willing to do that. They don't want to compromise on those things. So again, they need someone who's going to emerge that is a middle of the road Democrat. And I don't know if any of those authentically exist, at least right now.
Yeah, and PBS spoke to this Latino reverend, and they were sort of like asking him about that vote shift, because that was huge, towards Donald Trump and towards Republicans. And he says the evangelical ethos of most of these Latino voters aligns more with conservatives than it does with anything that the Democrats and the liberals are offering at this point. He also said that much to the surprise of a lot of these folks in the mainstream media, they're not in favor in the Latino community of illegal immigration. They want people to come here legally as well. I think there was some idea at one time or another that, oh, well, we can maintain the Latino vote, this is via the Democrats, if we let a lot of illegal immigrants in, because a lot of these people are coming up from Central America, from South America, you know, that'll resonate with people. And they're like, no, we're American citizens, you idiots. Like, we don't want people coming here illegally either. And then finally, they said that the good policies that President Trump and Republicans were putting forward was actually more appetizing to these voters than any issue they may have had with Donald Trump's personality. So it really does go to show you good policy and actually talking about what you're going to do and what your plans are is very impactful for people. And that's why so many of these voters shifted. Before we go, I think that it's really important to talk about the Emmys, because while I don't care at all about any of these award ceremonies, this may shock a lot of people. Remember the 60 Minutes interview that Kamala Harris had edited to try and make her look better, albeit Kay, she looked still like a complete fool and like a total, just like she had no idea, full word salad situation there. Remember that whole thing? Apparently, 60 Minutes, this specific episode, has gotten an Emmy nomination. I honestly can't even believe it. CBS scored an Emmy nomination last week for its 60 Minutes interview that is now at the center of this lawsuit with President Trump. The nomination for the 46th Emmy Awards for documentaries and news were announced this week, and multiple nominations went to the CBS program, including for that specific interview. That is really wild to me, Kay. I can't believe that there's somebody out there who, after all the hot water, 60 Minutes, and the Democrats got in for that specific episode, that's what they got an Emmy nomination for. I can't believe it.
I mean, CBS, whoever is up there sort of lobbying to win these, because like a lot of people think that these awards are like real, that they mean something, but they're not. They're just designed as an additional marketing tool for the studios, for the TV movie studios. The Emmys is just, you know, a bunch of losers getting together to pat themselves on the back. Funny what you said about Josh Shapiro earlier, sounding like Obama. They would probably be at the Emmys if they hadn't been pulled out of that same acting school that they were probably at. That's why they sound so similar. This doesn't surprise me about the Emmys. I've been writing for years. The Emmys also actively ignore most of the pro-America content and most of most the Christian content, the stuff that is actually the most popular. Like, I used to love it. Every single time the Emmy nominations would come out, I could go on a nice little 30-minute rant about how they've sort of completely ignored Taylor Sheridan's shows, even though they're the most pro-America shows that exist in the sort of non-fiction or the fiction sort of world, I guess. This really doesn't surprise me from CBS. It doesn't surprise me from the Emmys. Wasn't it also like last week that the photo of the year from last year was like some random picture of Joe Biden looking like the Slenderman, and like we completely ignored the fight photo, you know, the one of your father-in-law after he got shot in the face, like while running for president. I have that photo on a t-shirt. I almost wore it today because I wanted to make a point about it.
Next time.
Yeah, but it really doesn't surprise me. Like, no one watches any of the shows that, like, the Emmys even talk about these days. So, you know, by Emmys, you're going to be forgotten about in, like, a year, probably.
I think my favorite statement came from White House Communications Director Stephen Chung, and he said, of course it's nominated for Best Editing because it takes some serious talent to edit Kamala's answer into something that's coherent and understandable, which, in the end, they still failed to do, Brianna.
Yeah, you know, I think it was Dan Rather, and it might have been 2001 or 2004, I think it was CBS, who actually ended up stepping down from his role because he produced a story on Bush about a month and a half before the election that was deceptively edited. So 20 years ago, doing that was career suicide. 20 years later, it's actually, you know, common Emmy award-winning decision to make. So it just goes to show you.
It is so sad. It's a sad thing. But you know, the more this kind of stuff happens, I feel like the more, and look, a lot of people woke up over the past 4 years. A lot of people leading into the election on November 5th were like, wait a minute, I got to get involved. I can't just ignore what's been going on. But this kind of stuff, the little drips of like nonsense like this that people get a whiff of, think people are like, all right, we're really done with this. And I would argue that over the course of the next 4 years, when we actually finally have free, fair, and reciprocal trade, for example, when we're energy dominant once again, when we have a robust military and we want the strongest ones so we never have to use it, we're not sending money overseas to wars that we're not even supposed to be involved in. When all of these things are happening and people are feeling more optimistic about the future of America, I'm going to guess there are going to be a lot of people who are going to say, you know what? Maybe I didn't support Donald Trump in 2024, but he turned out to be a pretty great president. And maybe I ought to check out the Republican Party as a whole. And, yeah, just keep it up. That's what I'll say to the Democrats. We didn't even get to Tim Walz's daughter saying that she was privileged to be able to run. The people who run outside are privileged. It's outrageous. By the way, the best runners in the world come from Africa, most of them, and a lot of them run and train in bare feet. I'm just saying. The whole thing is nuts. Whatever. But Kay and Brianna, as always, you guys are the best. I appreciate you spending some time with us. And to everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll get to see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide, and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.